Guess I don't have my headphones on. Huh. There we go. Jai Guru. Everybody can hear me now. Yes.
There you go.
Maybe. Hmm. People. So welcome. Matthew and Ranga. Renee is back. Alan. Okay. And Keith.
Hello, hello. I'm switching teachings. I'm going every day in every way. I'm getting better and better. That's all. I'll just chant that. No, I just had. No, I'm feeling good today.
Good.
Maybe it's because I overslept. I forgot. I set my alarm clock wrong, so I slept like th over 3 hours more than I normally sleep, and it can tend to can tend to make me feel better or something somehow. But it goes both ways. And it occurred to me that one of the things that I guess I've been building maybe over over time is trust, trust in the reality of the teaching, and also what comes along with that, it seems, is a ability to deny reality to thought and what thought identifies as being real or not. So the more I see that thought is not delivering on reality, as, as far as it's not really. It seems like thought is identifying reality, but that's only seeming.
Thought. Thought came along with body, mind, ego, intellect. You're
Mm.
prior to the first thought. So any thought can be discarded because you're formless. You can think, okay, is this thought? It has to relate to a form. And if I'm identified with a form, then the thought seemingly relates to me. But if I'm not identified with the form, then thought is just kind of flowing and there's no getting involved in it. No thought is true. Remember, the mind, because it came along with the body, can only present images, ideas, pictures, whatever you want to call it,
Mm.
related to the body, related to body existence. You cannot have a thought about your own self. That's the thoughtless state because there's no thinker there. The thinker comes along with the body form as I am thinking this thought. It's not true. Very simple. And you can look for this. You know, they say, oh, do the inquiry, find the thinker. Well, the thinker is not there. Just like meditate on the meditator, concentrate on the concentrator. There is nothing. And not the concept of nothing, nothing. The absence of everything.
on that point, I got a question. So, I've been reading, and thank you for being here for us. But I've been reading, Nisargadatta's works and Sri Ramakant's since like about 2010, right? And as far as like meditating on the presence and stuff, right? I've only recently, in the past couple of years, actually started meditating. I was like considering, is this really like what it is? And I've had some experiences where I felt like I was formless awareness, right? And just there was like everything disappeared. And anyways, so I've been told that that's the glimpse of the self, right? And so what I've been wondering is, practically speaking, whenever we're practicing the meditation, right? Um, Whenever I sit, uh, I, I I I used to chant the mantra, right? And I still do, but I've also gone to where I just sit, right? Like kind of like Zen sitting, where you're just sitting just to sit, right? And I've been trying to concentrate on the presence, right? And I've thought, well, am I concentrating on the totality of the self within the body, or am I thinking about the self and just letting everything settle down to where I can see the self again, and then practicing within that space, right? So what is it? Is it that I'm focusing on the totality of beingness, or am I, trying to let my mind settle down to where I'm not I'm not necessarily having to refuse thoughts, right? But just letting them come and go until the mind settles down and says, I'm not going to have any thoughts, and to have thoughtless awareness at that point. What is
Yeah, when you're sitting with the mantra slowly, silently, and permanently erases all the illusion. And then you have that clear recognition. That's where that subtle sense of presence comes in. That just I, just I. That's an I without anything. Just subtle, subtle, subtle presence. And if you've already experienced this subtle sense of presence, then awareness turns to this presence and nothing else. And as time goes on, and that's why Nisargadatta Maharaj says, remain with the I am reveals all the secrets. And the secret is, if you remain with the subtle, subtle, subtle sense of presence, just awareness with the sense of presence, then you can start to kind of transfer any identification that might have been with the body to this subtle sense of presence. I am more like this subtle sense of presence than I am this body form. And yet, seemingly, this subtle sense of presence is the holder of the body form. So there's kind of a disconnect where now I'm identified with more of this sense of presence. And in your everyday waking life, as you're walking around, doing whatever you do in your daily duties, that subtle sense of presence, oh, I'm more like this presence than I am this body form. And that's where you start to kind of have an understanding of, oh, so that I am that. This subtle sense of presence eliminates birth, death, body, body-based knowledge, body-based existence, body relations, because all the body knowledge got you to where you are now, where you're saying, hey, you know what? When I sit in meditation, I feel this subtle sense of presence. And I understand this as sort of the beginnings of my understanding the self. And as you've identified with this sense of presence more and more, that becomes the primary object in your awareness. And as the presence becomes the primary object, then the even deeper knowingness, that's why Nisargadatta Maharaj says the doorway, one step is the world, the other step is to your own self. Of course, doorway is just a word and illusory. However, for this, you're remaining with the sense of presence. There's an understanding that whether presence is or is not, I am, because presence is now an object in my awareness.
mm-hmm.
And this then is that nothingness, that black hole, that no concepts, no questions, no anything. Then again, you go about your job, do your duties, but with this very understanding that I am formless. the ultimate reality. All of this is appearing and disappearing within my own self. I no longer am attached to this world because this world is within me.
Yeah. And what I was wondering about too is like, in the Nectar of the Lord's Feet, Nishikodata, he doesn't really say this in the other things, right? But I caught this one passage where um, he asked the person, he said, is that your experience from long hours of meditation? They were like, no. He's like, well, go back and do that, right? So if within the tradition, right, like we need a lot of practice with this, right? It's not just 30 minutes a day and we get it at some point, right? Like it takes a bit of effort, correct? Like, because is that correct? Or
Once you know yourself, if you say, oh, I sense this subtle sense of presence in meditation, the mantra allows you to, again, in this clear mind, the reflection comes, oh, so that I am that. Once this presence the identity has been transferred to the sense of presence, I'm more like this sense of presence than I am this body. Then this would be, I guess, what you would call the nirvikalpa samadhi, or the end of thought. And because you're no longer thinking about yourself as a form, because you're more identified with the sense of presence. And now the more that you are identified with the sense of presence, whether presence is or is not, I am. It doesn't matter if presence is there or is not there, because presence has appeared, presence can disappear. Body, mind, ego, intellect, world is on my spontaneous presence. And yet, if presence is not, I very much am. So practice to a point, and then when you know yourself in a real sense without the use of body, mind, ego, intellect, you're not doing anything. You're unwinding yourself. But it's the you that you are that's unwinding yourself from the illusion that I am somehow practicing, I am somehow learning Advaita, I am somehow progressing. All of these things are blacked out because I am not. There is no me that can progress. The space in the room can't progress.
yeah, I mean, progressions to the body where when you're the awareness, it's like all this is imposed upon you. It's not as far as my understanding goes, like I've, I've it's been difficult because I haven't had a glimpse of the self as far as I'm aware of it, right? Like as far as how I interpret it, it's been like difficult because you have your body, you have your mind, you have your persona, your ego that you walk around with daily, and then you're like, once you've seen that, it's like you feel like you're missing something the whole time, and if like it's like getting back to that state, like people have told me that just wanting to get back to that is what's stopping me. And I'm like, I don't see how a desire to liberate could stop you. I know Buddhism talks about that, but it's like, this is not Buddhism. This is, you should have a desire for earnestness. And um, I just,
In the beginning, but a desire creates a desirer, which is then an object in awareness. I'm desiring liberation. This is nice, but even in the end, that's why that's given up. Like you renounce the renouncer, so to speak. You're just perfectly fine with your own self. And if there is that sense of existence, that just I, the I am, that's the next sort of, oh, I just remain with this sense, this subtle sense of presence. And if I'm trying to get back to it, so to speak, that's when mantra is very helpful. Because now you say, okay, I'm trying to get back. So obviously there's an object in consciousness believing itself to be a you. And, oh, mantra. Subtle sense of presence comes back naturally because it's always there. It's just the thought stream that's covering it.
yeah,
Remember, Ramakant Maharaj, Sri Ramakant Maharaj, ash is on fire Remove the ash, fire is burning. But even with ash, fire is burning.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you,
Jagger?
Tiger.
Hi there.
Hello, Jagger.
My name's Ranga. It's my first time here. I come from a Buddhist background. Um, and earlier this year, I had a flash of that thoughtless, that nothing, that which cannot be verbalized. Um, After which, I discovered Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj's teachings and have been playing around with them a bit. Um, so you talked about unwinding after you have, so basically I've had my slice of insight, but I'm still very much a beginner. I didn't stay there long. So I'm wondering, like, coming from it, that I have an aversion to any sort of practice or methodology, because I think on some level I know that to not be it. So is it just a matter of unwinding and letting this thing go through its natural process? Or is there anything I should be doing?
Did you get mantra from Sri Ramakant Maharaj?
No.
No? Okay. So when you're sitting quietly in meditation, you do meditation, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Sitting quietly in meditation, any mantra will do, like Sri Ramakant Maharaj says, Aham Brahmasmi, Soham, Shivoham, any of these, basically what you're doing. And they tell a story of a mother who's trying to bake, and her children are just going crazy, not giving her a chance to bake. So she gives the children some toys, and the children start playing with the toys. Mother has a chance to bake. What this is you're keeping the mind sort of occupied, so to speak, with a mantra. And while this is happening, you then can concentrate more on your own selfless self, because this mantra, eventually too, you'll hear the mantra just running naturally through your body. It cleans. It's like a broom that just kind of, because as Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says, a quiet mind is all you need. But getting to the quiet mind is simply through meditation. This subtle sense of presence. You say you felt this, yes? This subtle sense of presence, the just I, just I. You're not looking for it, but you're just sort of, okay, if I sit here and I say, Aham Brahmasmi, or I am Brahman, Brahman I am, Brahman, not out loud, just in mind, like a broom, sweep, sweep, sweep. Because that fire, again, is burning bright, the ash is covering. Remove the ash, the fire, the selfless self is there, reflecting in the quiet mind as that sense of just I without anything. This subtle, subtle, subtle sense of presence. And your awareness should be interested in the sense of presence. Like it becomes, I know in my own experience, just in like a size of a dime. And I was constantly trying to like just sort of dive into that. Like it became an interesting, we talk about selfless self-intoxication because it becomes an intoxication. You desire, as we're speaking of desire, more and more and more of this subtle sense of presence. And you're no longer like searching for things out in this illusory world, because this sense of presence, this spiritual intoxication, this, oh, so that I am that, it overwhelms you. Gradually, again, you start to, as this sense of presence becomes more and more prevalent, transfer any identity of I am meditating, oh, this sense of presence. I'm more like the sense of presence. That's why Sri Ramakant Maharaj says, if you at all want to compare yourself to sky or space. Because, of course, you don't want to say, oh, I'm sky or space, but you're more like sky or space than you are this body form. So as you're sitting for meditation, you start to lose the concept of a meditator meditating. You get lost in the meditation. And that's why we talk about the dissolving, the unwinding, the just I, that subtle, subtle sense of presence. I am more like this sense of presence than I am this body form. This sense of presence was not born, cannot die, cannot be harmed, formless, but even the concept of formless is not needed. Eventually also, oh, this is the only object in my awareness is this sense of presence. Now, if presence was to go, of course, I am. So now presence is eliminated body, mind, ego, intellect, world, birth, death, cycles, karma, dharma, all these things thrown out the window. And you just, oh, whether presence is or is not, I am. That's that knock, knock on the door. Nobody's there, but somebody had to be there to say nobody's there. You are prior to the knowledge you exist. And the knowledge you exist birthed the world, the body, the mind, the ego, the intellect. So when we say unwind, you're back to this natural state.
Thank you. The the natural state. So again, so I've had that brief experience of that which cannot be named and cannot be described, that unanchored, unestablished. So in the traditions that I come, we use different words, right? So, but I feel we're speaking of the same thing. And I've had my slice of experience. What I find now is when I still formally sit and I do walking meditation, emerge. Just like my internet's a little unstable. Can you hear me?
I can, you're cutting out a little bit, but I can hear you, yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Um, I'll connect to Ethernet shortly. So I can feel that state starting to come on quite frequently, even in social situations when I'm not formally practicing, but it's just rearing its head. And then my mind feels a little bit of that lost, dumbfounded, completely gone. And something will happen. Either like today, I had a slight bit of fear. Typically, it's not fear. Typically, it's excitement, like, yes, like, like trying to hold on to it. So it's sort of like playing hide and seek with me. Um, so I'm struggling because when I try to formalize and practice, actually, it feels harder. It feels like I know how to engage it, but then the mind clings or grasps pretty quickly thereafter, and then it's kind of lost, and I have to just stop practicing, and I know it'll come back soon later. Does that make sense?
Understood. The mind, remember, you're giving power to the mind. That's the first thing. So as you're remaining with this subtle sense of presence, of course, because the mind only knows after body, mind, ego, intellect, this unknown, this void. And that's why many people, when they're meditating, they'll hit this void and they'll be like, ooh, no, that's a little scary. I'm going to step back. Because mind cannot present images, pictures, words, anything to you about yourself. And that's why even in Like as we're speaking, there should be like this very kind of heavy sort of sense of presence and thought free. And that's why Nisargadatta Maharaj says in the books, the questions shouldn't just keep churning. They should be kind of gradually slowing, because as we're speaking, the selfless self is speaking to the selfless self. The two bodies that are there are irrelevant. It is that one self speaking and that one self listening. And this sort of just stops. And so, as you're saying, in your daily activities, you start to sense this sense of presence, and it's very, very strong. You don't need to acknowledge this, and you don't need to have any fear of this. And if any thought comes, oh, it's okay. Just brush it aside. It doesn't matter. And that's why you're remaining with your selfless self is so important. That selfless self-intoxication is sort of the reward. Sri Ramakant Maharaj talks about like the candy for the little child. It's the reward. You start to feel this sense of presence. It's an ease and comfort. It's a very, very beautiful, you could call it bliss. You don't want to get attached to the bliss from your own self, but that is sort of the reward for remaining with your selfless self, this awareness of this sense of presence. And if for some reason you do drop back in, and then, okay, you can quickly recover. Just, oh, look, I thought one moment that something was happening, and then you don't worry. Because if you sit there and you say, oh, I dropped out of presence, or like you said, the reward, oh, wow. Even some people will time and say, wow, I was in this sense of presence today for 3 hours. It was so amazing. And then I got on this elevator and people were talking and I fell out. So I'm hoping that I can keep it for a long time. But you just brush that thought aside, because you know that's the constant. That's the ultimate truth. All these other things are just layers. And as these layers are dissolving, that ultimate truth is very much there.
Thank you.
I guess the bliss could still be considered an object to the self, but it's a different type of object than identification. It's I mean it because bliss is itself almost without an object, but it's still you're experiencing it, so it has to be an object, but it's a different type of
Bliss,
object.
bliss being an experience, remember, no experience, no experiencer. So bliss is, again, the reward in the beginning. You're remaining with your selfless self-intoxication. Oh, so beautiful. But you don't get held up. That's why Sri Ramakant Maharaj says, many miraculous things may happen, but you don't get held up. Sri Siddhar Mishra Maharaj always says about don't get involved in Siddha powers or try to be like, oh, I can walk on hot coals or any of this sort of thing, because you want to remain with your selfless self. All of this is illusion. We spoke about before, if you lay down to sleep and you have a nice dream and you have all this meditative power and you can fly and you can do all these wonderful things, but it's in a dream. You wake up in the morning and it doesn't matter. In the dream, while it was appearing, it seemed very relevant, very amazing.
Hmm.
But when you wake up on the other side, you know, that was nothing.
Yeah, so what I've been seeing, like just going over stuff, is that it seems that like, and this is skipping ahead for me, this is not really where I'm at, right? But it seems that like what they're saying is, you experience the self, right? And that's great and stuff, but like the person, it's like you drop the witness, is that correct? Where you're not witnessing anymore, and then that's Parabrahman, essentially. You
There's no
just like,
witness, no witnesser, no
yeah,
experience, no experiencer. Nothing is
yeah,
there. Body form is still available, but there's nothing that's like holding you. You know, you used to believe that thoughts were in here, and now you understand that basically thoughts are the world because you're no longer identified with a body form. You can't say, "Oh, I'm thinking. All my thinking is coming from here." If you're formless, you have no thinker.
yeah. That's been tricky for me because I've it seems like sometimes I've had these insights where the thoughts are just thoughts, and they're like they how do I put it? It's like, where do thoughts come from if there's no difference between inside and outside? It's like these thoughts are just here. But then it's like you have the question of, can other people read thoughts? And it's like they talk about that as a Sita, right? And you don't really pursue that because that has its own danger, right? Because you're getting caught up in
Exactly.
ignorance and
Just like
stuff.
in a dream.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, there
this
could be
is one of
thoughts
those,
in
right?
dream. Anything can occur in a dream. When you wake up, was any of it of any value?
Yeah. Yeah. I love the whole how they talk about, this is all upon Brahman, and like in Buddhism they talk about how emptiness is form and form is emptiness, the two stances. And it's like, this is all impressed upon yourself. This is not none of this is the only thing real is the absolute, right? And so it's like beyond the self, there's the absolute, the whole ground of all things, right? And so it's like whenever we have these troubles or these pleasures and stuff, it's like I don't really need to get attached to these things because this is not like the body mind that's witnessing this is not really real anyway. Like this is not who I am.
Correct.
But it's very hard because it's like unless you practice and meditate, right? Like I said, I'm skipping ahead, right? But after enough practice, you start to see these things, and these things are very self-aware, right? And the world doesn't just disappear, but you understand it's not true anyway. And I find it to be a very beautiful thing because um, it takes away, like if you feel like you're losing something in life, you have fear, you have aversion, you have anger, you have sadness, like all those things are losing stuff, but all these things are contained within you. So you're never losing anything. It was never real to begin with, so it's not worth worrying about, you know. It's
Right. Just the dream. You lay
yeah,
down at night sleeping. That's formless. Obviously, your dream consciousness creates a dream world with dream people, dream scenes, dream speaking. All of it seems very real within the dream. And then you wake up, none of it was true. And the waking up in this is knowing yourself in a real sense. I am not body. I was not body. I'm not going to remain the body. Body is not my identity. Sri Ramakant Maharaj rightly says, accept your selfless self. There's no God, no Brahman, no Paramatman, no master. Nothing is there. Not the concept of nothing, the absence of everything.
yeah. It's um with the non-being state, is that the same as Parabrahman? Because like once like one thing I think that it's hard to understand is like when you do the practice, right, and you go, you see the self. I'm assuming that's what happened to me, right? And then you see that like all of this is not real, right? There's just a self and there's formless awareness, right? But then like is that what they're talking about, the non-being state essentially, where there is no
The
body at
non-being
that point?
state is that when your awareness of presence, whether presence is or is not, you are.
Hmm.
That you are, without any better word, is Parabrahman.
Right. So can you have a glimpse of Parabrahman? Is that the same?
Well, you
Or
are Parabrahman. So
right, but
the glimpse is just the knowledge and the understanding, the self-recognition that whether presence is or is not, I am. Before the
okay.
sense of existence, you existed.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was confused on. Is it was like some people say that like Parabrahman, it's a stateless state, right? But it's like
Correct.
it's in a sense a state, right? Where you
No,
see
it's the
no.
ultimate truth.
Right. Well,
All states appear on that.
what I've read is like people say that Parabrahman, you can't have a glimpse of it because you already are that, right? But it's like whenever
You are that, yes.
when you go into the non-being state, right, and you realize that all this is not real, right? Is that the same as Parabrahman, or
Well, there's no realization that everything is not real because there's no one to realize.
right?
That's what we talk about the black hole. After the understanding of whether presence is or is not, I am, no questions, no concepts, nothing. There's no, and that you are.
But when
And by the
you're
way, this is going to cut off in 10 minutes, so it'll cut off abruptly. It may cut off while you're speaking. It's nothing against any people. It'll just end. This is like a free thing and it just ends.
does anyone else want to ask questions? I'm sorry.
No. You can continue. I'm totally cool with that. I just want to let you know so you didn't think like this is your first time here that suddenly, boom, you're cut off and you're like, oh, that was very rude.
Oh, okay. Yeah, someone else asked questions. I know y'all got some. I'm good for now. So
Well, I'm good with somebody else asking questions instead of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
Yeah. I don't know if
I
I'll
just
go.
wanted you to know the meeting's going to end soon. So that's all.
Yeah, it looks like we have like a minute. Oh. I wanted to ask, so from like the Buddhist tradition, we talk about like I am not anything. It's like anatta, non-self, right? And some of Nisargadatta Maharaj's quotes seems to point to that. Like, what do you mean by I am that natural state? Because when you're there, you're not anything, right? You're like, there's no, does that make sense?
Correct. You're stepping down sort of into the body-based illusion to say I am that, recognizing, oh, so that